you guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to the desk corner. In my previous video I went through an art haul with you guys, and one of the items I was pretty excited about obtaining were these Ohuhu alcohol markers. These are the brush and chisel tip markers, and there are 72 colors. I talked about them a little bit in my haul video because I was just overexcited about them and I really wanted to open them and just take a look. But in today's video I'm actually going to swatch them out so that we can take a better look at them and maybe blend them a little and play around with them a little bit as well. I really like this pouch that the markers come in. You can store them horizontally like this, and you can also transport them as they have the handle on top, so this is really handy to make sure you don't lose any of the markers. I've opened these already before, but the reveal is so beautiful. I'll show you guys what I mean. Ta-da! Look at all those colors! There are a couple of papers that come with this set. Again, this is the set of 72 colors. On first glance, I thought that these colors looked too pastel-like, but then when I tested them out, well, not too many, I tested out maybe 4 or 5 colors just to take a look. I was getting a bit impatient. I noticed that they're actually darker than they look from the swatch on the tips of the markers, which I was pleasantly surprised by because I didn't want too many pastel colors. Now, putting that aside for a second, we can take a look here at what comes with the set. We've got these 2 color swatch charts. I'm not sure why there's 2 instead of 1. I mean, I guess because if there was 1, it would have to be like this and it would be bent more inside of this pouch. So I guess it makes sense why there's 2. So there's 2 color swatch charts here for the 72 colors. I think this is really convenient to have so that I don't have to make my own swatch chart, which, as you guys might know, I'm not super good at. I'm gonna have to start typing them up or something. It also came with this sheet, and it says if you are coloring on thin paper, please put this pad between your coloring sheets to prevent any bleed through. I think that's very useful, especially for those of you guys that like to use sketchbooks and you like to kind of just work through the sketchbook, and this would fit perfectly in between your sketchbook papers, or pages, I mean. It also comes with this booklet. It is bent, of course, because it was sitting curved inside of the pouch. And this is just about Ohuhu as a brand. And about the markers. I'm not going to read through all of it right now, but it's like a standard booklet that comes with some art sets. It does kind of break down the different tips that you can get here. Apparently they have a lot, actually. They have brush tip, supreme brush, and mini brush, chisel, slim broad, fine tip, soft chisel, large chisel, and wide. So that's actually a pretty big range. I don't know if that's standard. I don't have a lot of alcohol marker sets. I only have the Blick Studio besides this one. So I don't know if that's a thing with Copics and other alcohol markers or not, but that's pretty interesting. Again, the set I got is just the normal brush and chisel tip. There's a bit of a Q&A here too about how to use the markers, how to refill the markers. And it does explain the color code. I am a nerd when it comes to colors, but I don't know if I can really get super into the codes and the pigments and everything. With alcohol marker sets, I would say it's pretty standard to have a ton of colors because you do need that for blending, especially if you use alcohol markers as your main medium. There are just so many colors and different series that you can buy, different combinations. Alright. That was at least the English. I'm actually pretty eager to start swatching, but before I do that, I guess we can take a look at what the individual marker looks like. This is the, oh my, this is the Ohuhu Honolulu series. It says Ohuhu Honolulu on it, and I saw through the booklet that there's a couple of different options, but I'm not sure if that's just the combination of the chisel and the brush tip, or if that's part of the color series. Maybe I should have paid more attention to that booklet. Here's what the chisel tip looks like. Pretty standard. Here's what the brush tip looks like. Color name and number is printed at the tops the tips of the marker caps. And it tells you which side is chisel, which side is brush, but of course the brush side here has this gray around it so that you can tell just by looking at that. You don't have to read it. If you guys take a look at these color swatch charts here, you can see that there's a color code, there's the name of the color, and then the old color code. So they must have changed how they code their colors here, but luckily they keep the old one for reference. So that's always nice as well for people who have had the previous set and they're doing refills or something like that. I don't know why I'm so excited about swatching these. I think it's because I don't really have many alcohol markers besides the Blick Studio set, and it's been a really long time since I've bought new ones, so this is pretty exciting for me. Well, would you look at that mess? Swatching is clearly my strong suit, by the way, you guys. But I like how they arranged these colors and how they organized them in their two separate swatch charts. The first one over here is a lot of yellows, beige, pinks, orange, red, purple, a couple blues at the bottom, and then basically where it ends here, it picks back up on the second swatch chart with blues, greens, and grays, and then of course black there at the bottom. Now the last pencil that is included in the set is a colorless blender, and I really love how these are arranged. So I guess I'm gonna go ahead and read them off for you guys. I'm gonna start with the first swatch chart, and I'll zoom in as much as I can and try to focus it a bit here. I'm not gonna read the actual numbers here, but just the names, and I'm going to go column by column. So we have, how do I make this more, here we go, banana cream, dark marigold, orange, lime juice, pink carnation, cerise, hot pink, faded violet, and iris. For column 2 we have mustard, caramel, cinnamon, cedar brown, deep blush, amaranth, rich raspberry, grade lavender, cloud blue, I think that might be the lightest one actually. Column 3 we have light gold, salmon orange, potato brown, tomato. I love tomato, that one is so pretty. Even prettier in person than on camera. It looks a bit brighter on camera, but it's a bit more muted looking at it in person. Morello cherry, prune juice, pansy, bright lavender, sky blue. Column 4 we have melon yellow, sunset orange, burnt sienna, deep vermilion, old rose, pastel pink, which is not much of a pastel, it looks pretty bright to me, grape juice, deep purple, and brilliant blue. So my favorites probably looking at this are that tomato color, morello cherry, the iris is so pretty, I absolutely love it. The deep blush just looks like one of those really nice lipstick colors, honestly. It has its fair share of muted, bright colors and then deeper colors, which I like since the color dips on the markers don't look all that dark, or I guess they look more pastel than how they actually swatch out. So I'm glad that it turned out this way. Let's go ahead and look at color swatch 2. So color swatch 2, first column we have light minty blue, classic blue, muted turquoise. I love muted turquoise. Glass green, not grass green, but glass green. And I think that that's really pretty. It looks like stained glass. It took me a minute though to realize it was glass instead of grass because I'm just so used to seeing grass green. Vintage pale green, yellow green, which is a good standard lime color I think, cool gray, Collingwood gray, silver cloud, cotton candy blue, faded teal, pale cobalt green, shamrock green, which is I guess a bit closer to a grass green color, sour apple, edamame, It's a bit lime looking for edamame, but I'll go with it. Icy Gray, Porcelain, Evergreen Fog. Column 3 we have Pool Blue, Bright Pine Green, Dusty Jade Green, Emerald Green, Grass Green, Guacamole. Now that just looks like very old guacamole to me, not the bright green that the fresh guacamole should have, but maybe that's my bias living somewhere where there's a lot of avocados. Blue Steel Gray, Silver Gray, Soft Cool Gray, Cerulean Blue, Turquoise, Aged Pine Green, Dark Emerald, Sugarcane, Bud Green, Storm Gray, Antique Silver, and Black. I love this range. I think it's so nice. Like I said though, now I'm thinking maybe I should have got the fine tip and the brush tip since I don't have that combination, but maybe that's just an excuse for me to buy more markers in the future. Oh my goodness, as of filming this video, I've already made another purchase on Blick. I justified it in my own head, but I guess once I make the video about it, you guys can decide if it's truly justified. I do want to do a bit of playing around with these markers though, but first I think I want to put these markers back in color families and sort them a little better, which is why I just left them all out like this when I swatched them. So this might take me a minute. We're going to go ahead and do that. Well, I learned my lesson there to never take them all out, because if you take them all out, what happens is it's really hard to get them all back in. I should have realized that, but apparently I didn't really think of it. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just kind of arranging them. I was trying to do that, but there was one actually stuck at the bottom, and so I had to take it out, and so then the arrangement just got kind of messed up here, and I was trying to arrange them in a way that made sense to me. I can't tell if there's still one stuck there at the bottom, but I guess we'll find that out later. It is a bit difficult getting them to stay. I kind of wish there were slots in this bag, like maybe a little sheet that had, or a little tray that had slots so that you could kind of arrange them. I've just cut some spare paper here, and I just wanted to play around with these markers a little bit. Not sure if I'm going to get to creating an artwork. If I am, it's definitely not going to be today, but I wanted to see how these blend together and just mess around with them a little bit. So I have the 2 color swatch charts out here, and I'm just going to lay them together like this. These 2 colors, Banana Cream and Light Gold, look pretty close. Actually, I'm not entirely sure about that now that I've swatched it out. I think the Banana Cream would blend better with one of the other colors than it will with Light Gold, because it has more of that greenish color to it. Don't know if you guys can even... I'm going to be a little bit more bold here. I'm going to try to mix the light gold with the mustard. I think that's what I'm going to do. I recognize that these colors are pretty far apart from each other. I'm not expecting this blend to be seamless at all. Also, forgive me continuously putting the caps back on. I'm so paranoid about markers drying out. Actually, that does blend pretty well. Those 2 colors are not like ultra close or anything, and it does blend pretty well. I mean, not seamlessly, but you can definitely blend those 2. Let's see if I can label it and make it look less ugly. There we go. I've never really been a huge fan of blender pencils, but maybe I'll try another swatch and use the blender and see if that makes a difference. Although I never really use blender pencils, or blender markers I should say. Both of them I never really use. I think I used to, and then I just don't really anymore. So we're going to see if that makes a difference. First, we're going to try blending it a little bit just with the markers themselves, like we did the other ones. And then I'm going to take the blender marker and just attempt to do a little more. So I think I'm not going to have too difficult of a time with this 72 set. I know that with alcohol markers, the bigger set you can get, the better, but I couldn't justify getting myself a bigger set just because I don't use alcohol markers a ton. Although I could justify getting more colors and then having like a fine tip and not just a brush and chisel tip, but maybe I shouldn't get myself started on that right now. There are some rather light colors in here, like, where is it, cloud blue. I want to see what color would blend well with cloud blue. Maybe I could try to blend it with the sky blue, or maybe with that light minty blue. The sky blue would be kind of a jump, but you know what? Maybe let's just try that anyway. It's definitely not going to blend seamlessly, but I just want to give it a shot. Again, this is the Honolulu series here. If I look through the booklet a little bit more thoroughly, I would probably be able to see if some of these colors overlap throughout the series or if they're all different, and therefore people can just kind of collect them over time. Obviously, this is going to be difficult to blend. These colors are very different, and I think the sky blue is a lot darker. If I use that colorless blender, I might be able to get just a little bit more of a blend. I'm not really sure if it's helping that much, actually. Maybe just a little bit. I think it's just adding extra alcohol to kind of help blend it. I actually think that blended pretty well, you guys. I think it actually did. I mean, these are not two colors I would immediately think would blend really well together, but it's not bad. Now I have my emerald green color, and I am just going to maybe blend it with that dark emerald green, which I think is so pretty. These are both very dark colors already. Oops, that's the chisel tip side. I'm curious what combination you guys like with markers. Do you prefer to have the chisel or the fine tip with the brush, or do you prefer to have like the fine and the chisel? I don't think I could ever do without the brush. I think I'd have to always have the brush, but I think it might be cool to have some that were fine tipped as well for details. Usually what I do for details is I just use the chisel tip. I also should have this bag on its side, probably, especially, I guess now it's okay, but especially for storage sake. Gotta remember to keep it on its side. This is just me practicing coloring within the lines, like all professionals do. I just wanted to see how much darker you can kind of layer with these markers. I don't like to layer them a ton because it does tend to make them bleed through. Now blending does the same thing, obviously, but it does come with this sheet for that, for sketchbooks and stuff like that, so that you can just kind of use your sketchbook without ruining this other page, but it's definitely going to bleed through onto the other side at least. Me just blending two colors that don't really blend at all for no reason. That was Faded Violet and Deep Purple. I love pumpkins. And I love that we're in the season for pumpkins right now. Just me messing around a little bit with these guys, and I don't know, I'm just excited, and I think I'm just overly excited and I need to actually get to creating an artwork. And cut to me actually working on an artwork with these new markers. So this was a sketch I already had planned out a couple months ago, and I wanted to finish that piece over the summer, never did, and then now I decided I'd rather not leave it unfinished. So let's go ahead and put my Ohuhu markers to the test by using them for this sketch. One thing though is that this piece really put the markers to the test because this required a lot of skin tones, a lot of gray tones, and this set is definitely lacking in skin tones and not really lacking in gray, but there are a few missing grays, like for example, more of a dark or a Payne's gray that's a bit closer to black. The set did not include that, so that was a bit of a struggle. So overall, I think that layering and blending is really fun with these markers, and I absolutely had a great time. I was struggling a bit because I ended up, with a bit more orange and red in the face than I wanted there to be, because there aren't really that many browns in the set to create more shadows with. Again, I recommend adding portrait colors or just getting a bigger set. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. There's also a lot of gray in this piece. For example, there's warm gray here in the glove, but then there's going to be a different range of grays that I use for his shirt, which are going to be more of like cool grays. And for those of you that don't know, yes, this is Chief Brody from the movie Jaws. Soon you'll be able to see the shark a bit better in the background there. I wanted to create this for Jaws' 50th anniversary this summer, but again, didn't get around to it over the summer, so I'm just glad that I'm finishing it now. And I originally was going to use my Blick Studio markers for this piece, which does have a bit of a bigger range of grays, but I'd rather test the Ohuhus and just see where they lie, where their strengths and weaknesses are, which I'll talk about a bit more regarding the color range after this. But just regarding the actual markers themselves, they're really fun to work with. I like both the chisel and the brush tip, although the brush tip is way more useful for blending. Can't really speak on the bullet or fine nib, but that's something I'm interested in for the future for sure. I like that the brush was not overly flimsy, but it also moved enough to allow for adequate blending, which is great. And I didn't have any issues with the paper like warping or any, the paper getting destroyed after all the layers that I put into this artwork. So I'll list the name of the paper in the description box. I kind of forgot what it is and I've had it for years, but it's very smooth and good paper for markers. The only colorful part of the piece is the water in the background, and even for that I wish I had a deeper blue, so the 72 is going to be a limited range of colors for sure. Finally, I'm just going to add in all the highlights with my Uniball white gel pen, which is sometimes the most fun part of a piece, just finishing it up. I was kind of afraid I would mess up with the mouth and the water between the teeth here at the end, so I ended up scratching some of it off and trying to make some of it look a bit more muted. Here's my finished artwork. Let me know what you guys think of it in the comments down below. I think it turned out pretty good. Maybe I would have made the blue a little less bright because it's taking attention away from the main picture, but I think that despite having a smaller color palette, I had a lot of fun creating this artwork and I think it turned out well. Now just to talk about the markers before I end this video. So the 72 set is actually a pretty limited color palette, I would say, for markers at least, because with markers it's difficult to blend them unless you have colors that are pretty close. I decided to take another look at the big booklet that my markers came with, and oh my goodness, I wish I had done some research before I purchased the set. This is the color palette or the swatches of all the Honolulu or Honolulu B colors. Honolulu meaning the markers that come with the brush and chisel tip. Honolulu B comes with the brush and the fine tip. Or the bullet tip. Yes, that's right. The brush and the bullet nib, which is maybe what I should have gotten. But if you guys look at this, this is a lot of colors. Just the ones to the left of my hand right now is 320 colors. And these individuals are just add-ons. It seems like the set of gray, portrait, and the pastels have some unique colors that you can only get within these sets, but they also have some repeat colors that are part of this larger 320 set. This larger 320 set is part of this 216 set, and then these 104 additional colors that you can buy separately. Now the 216 set includes a smaller set of 168, a smaller set of 120, the 72, the 48, and the 24 set, meaning that if you go out and buy the 216 set, it's going to come with all the colors here. So you don't need to start out with a smaller set if you really think you're going to go and buy that many colors. Or you can buy the 168 set includes pastels, includes these extra colors here, includes all the basics, or you can just buy 120. Now if you buy 120, you always have the option to add on any of these extra sets later. So you can choose if you want any of these extra sets, and you can buy them later. So if you get 120, you're pretty set, because all these other ones, pastels, midtones, 104 extra colors, grayscale tones, portrait, a bigger set of pastels, which includes these 48 pastels, but also you can buy the other 48, or you can buy them all together as 96 apparently, right? So if you start out with the 120 set, you might not need to buy a lot of extra colors, and if you do decide to, you can buy them separately as sets, not just as individual markers. But if you decide to go smaller than 120, then you might end up with repeats later if you decide to buy a bigger set, just because it seems like you can't buy these other ones. Like, for example, if you have the 72 set, you can't buy these 2 columns of colors unless you get them open stock. They don't come in a set on their own unless you just buy them open stock or you buy 120, but then you're going to get all these repeats. So for me, as a person newer to these markers, this is very confusing. Any of you guys who've used these for a while, how long before they dry out? Because if someone goes out and buys a big set, like 320, that's a lot of colors, and if they do end up drying out, that would be pretty annoying. I'm sure there's ways to revive them, and you can always refill them as well when the ink runs out, but how long do these markers really last? I'm curious, what do you guys think in the comments down below, because I don't have much knowledge on this, and I'm curious what sets you guys have, if you have the Ohuhus, what size set you recommend, and if the markers last a long time, so it makes sense to buy more colors. It's very confusing to me. Personally though, if I were going to recommend a set for artists, I would say start with that 120, and you might not need to add on anything from there, but if you want to, there's plenty of options for other sets you can add on. Without having to get 320 colors, you can buy all these individual sets, or just even 1 or 2 extra sets if you really want to. So that's what my advice would be. I guess if you're really into pastels, you could just get the 168 colors. It comes with half of all the pastels. But oh my goodness, is there a lot of pastels if you guys look at all of these? For me, I think that the portrait tones would be really useful to have on hand. If you're using these for coloring books instead of just like fine art, I think you could get away with a smaller set, honestly, or pick and choose what color range you really like. Like, you could get away with just getting a smaller set here and then adding on, for example, if you do a lot of coloring books that have people in them and you really want skin tones or you really want pastels, I don't know if I would go with a bigger set for that, because a lot of this is for blending. Okay, that was a bit of a tangent, but I just wanted to talk about that because I was pretty shocked at just how many colors, and I was pretty overwhelmed, but I do think that the 72 set is a bit lacking, and I think what I'm going to do though is probably use these a bit more and see how often I am using them before I decide to buy another set. Or if I am going to buy another set pretty soon, I'm probably going to add on those portrait colors because I know that I'm probably going to use those. Again though, I have to think about it if it's really worthwhile or if I should just use the ones that I have. But I am kind of annoyed that I didn't just go out and get that slightly bigger set so that I would have a base set that I could add on to later. I can always buy individual colors though. That's always an option. It's just an annoying option. Anyways, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I really like the Ohuhu markers. I'd like to know what you think of them in the comments down below. What's your experience? What set do you have? Do you feel like 72 is enough? Is 72 too small? What do you guys think? And thank you so much for watching today's video. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!